Give me a state of the business right now. Is it positive? Is it negative? Is it healthy?
Stadium?
State of the music business.
So I had my colleagues at Polestar, which some of you may have heard of. It's not Bloomberg, but we try. I can just wrap through a few little ones that are actually accurate.
Okay.
So this is not opinion, it's accurate. So live entertainment's the number one entertainment choice for consumers is thriving even more than ever. The top artists are playing bigger and bigger venues, selling more tickets with higher price points than ever before. Demand exceeds supply, creating a public clamor for the government to act. I believe that the root of the problem is an unregulated secondary market, which drives up ticket prices and contributes to an even greater scarcity of face value tickets. As it's getting harder and harder for smaller acts to sell out even the smallest of venues. At over 30,000 capacity stadiums, top artists basically have 4.1% unsold tickets, whereas the smaller venues have 20% unsold tickets. All genres are killing it. Basically, I know you made the rap comment, but
I know rap has not had a great year. But.
That's a function of who toured, how it was packaged, where it played. Something I noticed this week, for the first time, Coachella mid-release, 4 months earlier than usual.
And then sold out, right?
First time in 3 years. That bodes well for the festival market. Outdoors, both stadiums and festival, greater unpredictability, severity of weather, and therefore the attendant cost of insurance, if you can even get it, is causing us managers to think about how and where to play.
I have a question about something you said earlier, because I know this is something you feel passionately about. So if you could wave your magic wand and fix scalping overnight, or fix this, which you described as a secondary market, what's the first thing you do?
Well, I'll just give California as an example. There was a bill, feels like it was about 18 years ago, and through the Music Artists Coalition, which is a wonderful organization that we helped form, we got close on a bill. Okay, and the key components were exempt sports, because all the sports team owners didn't want to have caps on it. We said just deal with music. We said first thing we'd like to do is make it illegal to pre-list tickets you don't own. There was a rumor in the New York Post that Harry Styles was going to the Sphere, which was totally untrue. Harry doesn't like to comment on anything. He's trying to be quiet. He's trying to be away. We finally, my son Jeffrey, who managed them, finally had to comment because fans were paying deposits to scalpers and secondary people. So it's totally legal to pre-list. We couldn't even get pre-listing through. Okay, the Golden State Warriors and the San Francisco 49ers at the end of the day even killed that. StubHub and others, very well-organized lobbies. Okay, so I defy anybody to tell me why it's illogical that we couldn't put a cap on just music tickets. Let the sports is different, but we can't get it done.
You tell me, you're the one. You'd think so. Does that mean that you think that the average cost of a ticket would just go up forever?
On the way over, I had a friend call me, say, I'm going to the Eagles at the Sphere in November, blah, blah, blah. He says, I got 4 great tickets, but they cost me, how could you charge me $1,700 a piece? I said, where in the hell did you pay? It's a $300 face ticket. He bought the ticket on StubHub, of course. Bought the tickets on StubHub. I said, go resell them, call me. I have tickets held. I'll sell you the $300 face value tickets. But look, Platinum, as an acts manager, Platinum is working. Okay, but you can't take too many Platinum tickets. But and we cap the Platinum tickets, whereas none of the secondaries will do that. And by the way, they sell tickets they don't. It's not just StubHub. Across all the secondaries, they sell tickets they don't have a lot of times, and then they're able to get them. It's like shorting a stock, then they go out to buy in stock. But regularly in our venues, we have to hold back relocation seats because inevitably a guy's going to show up with a ticket from one of the secondaries for a seat that's not his.
So you've brought up the Sphere a couple times. Can you explain both what you do with the Sphere and also the history of you and Jim Dolan.
Yeah, Jim Dolan is my closest friend, or one of my closest friends. He's the guy is a misunderstood genius. I think I'm one of the people that understands it. Originally, he and I were in a partnership, and I helped get that site from Sheldon Adelson and get it entitled to build. And we were going to build. The idea was to build the Forum, which we owned at the time, in Las Vegas. And he said to me, "No, the future is not in rectangular buildings. The future is in spheres and immersive." And the guy, and he said, and it's going to be mostly, the money's going to be driven mostly by films. Okay? I mean, he has been right every step of the way. It may have cost more than he wanted it to cost, but it is, if any of you should get down there to see Wizard of Oz, because it changes everything. I do a lot of things with Jim. Many of the acts that play at the Sphere there, I do help. I'm a close advisor, I guess is the word on. I was the one that had him, introduced him to Phil Jackson, so I don't go to New York restaurants around Knick fans.
What do you think is going to be the next movie after Wizard of Oz?
Well, he's I don't think he's announced, but he may have announced in the last earnings. He's shooting an original movie. I'd call it a very stunt.
This is the action sports one?
Yes,
yeah.
It's an action sports movie. After that, I was involved in the negotiating and the securing of the rights for Wizard of Oz. And there's, I'm getting calls and he's getting calls from many studios. You can't, as a movie studio, you can't call up and say, Bob Iger can't call up and say, I'm going to make Star Wars and rent the theater. Jim has a thing called Sphere Studios out here in Burbank, and he actually makes the films. So, I mean, he's interested in licensing IP to make films, but he's going to make the films, own the films. Goes in the ground in Abu Dhabi with the second Sphere on January 1st. Our company, Oakview, is the project manager, and then we will run and book the building once it's open.
Are we going to get other spheres in the U.S.?
He announced, I think, in his last meeting that, and we again at Oakview are in conversations with him to do smaller spheres, in more 5,000-seat capacity. We'd like to see 4 of those.
Do you have a city you most want to see it in?
Me personally, there's a great site in Chicago. If the city could get it together, to me the naturals are. Austin, Texas, something in Texas, obviously Orlando, New York would be great, and Jim's been trying there for a long time.
I think we have a poll question for the audience, because to your Harry Styles earlier.
The next musician or spirit the artist should be, what's that mean?
Who would people want to see?
Oh, I don't manage any of those, so I don't give a shit. I would guess if you took a look, we don't know. We haven't gotten a really young artist in there yet to know, but I would think if you took a poll, it would come up Harry Styles, Taylor Swift, BTS would be the 3 that I think on numbers wise. If you took a poll of the people who have gone to the Sphere and seen U2 and the Eagles and people like that, it would probably come up Fleetwood Mac, Bruce Springsteen, U2 again.
Okay, Beyonce wins, but would Bruce do it? Have you talked to Bruce about it? Would Bruce do it?
I don't know. I was with Paul McCartney at the Sphere the other night. I think he'd be great there if he wanted to do it. I don't know if Bruce would do it.
Yeah.
Haven't had the conversation.
You talked about management, which is, I think, what you're still best known for, artist management.
Right.
Who's been the most difficult artist to manage over your career?
Listen, you can't kiss and tell. Listen, I will tell you that I have peers in the management business that have always said, gosh, it's so hard. And that we actually really like these people. They're our friends, and we have admiration for them. And there's, it's easier to talk about, the great ones than the ones that are really, but every one of them is a bit different. That's what makes them creative.
You have you seen anyone kind of command culture in the way that Taylor Swift has as a musician over the last few years?
No, I mean, she's the Beatles.
And
she's our Beatles. I do think Harry Styles has come close, and who, we'll see.
You're not just saying that because he's
no, he did, but I think he's been away for a while. Not exactly sure when he'll be back, but of everyone out there, and it's not just because my son manages him, I think he has the potential. I think he's going to be a lot bigger this time around, if that's possible.
I talked a little bit with Kinsel about the sort of the Lucy and Elliot relationship, and I'm curious, as someone who is sort of in the process of handing over parts of your business to your son, how do you approach sort of training him and passing it off and making sure that he's not like some entitled brat because his dad's such a big...
Listen, Jeffrey's, I didn't hand off anything. He's, as a father, the greatest thing you can have is, you actually, he's turned into as good a manager or the best manager I've seen. I'd trust him more with the career than I would me at this point. But it's a great dynamic. One thing, I'm not that young anymore, believe it or not, and one thing that keeps me working is having my son and others at the company. Yeah.
Well, you also have the rare music company other than you run by two women.
And they're both here today to make sure I don't put my foot in my mouth.
You guys started a business to buy catalogs, manage estates, called Iconic, right?
Correct.
What's the most valuable catalog in the world?
Ooh. I normally would have said Beatles, but I'm not sure that's true anymore. You got to maybe say Taylor at this point.
So you have David Crosby, or
we're a private company, but the press has
Beach Boys,
Rod Stewart, Crosby, Stills and Nash, Linda Ronstadt, Rod Stewart. I don't know if it's public. We recently acquired a chunk of the Sinatra estate. We have all the Rat Pack. We have Dean Martin. We're very diverse. We have Cher.
And so when you take something like Sinatra and the Rat Pack, something that iconic, but not to the name of your company, but not contemporarily kind of cool. That's what people are talking about.
Iconic for me connotates our friends, clients. It's just as you do these polls, if we think it's iconic, we're interested.
So how do you?
It's just not music type, but these estates are badly managed. It's great for estate planning, for some of these older artists especially. So
how do you take a Beach Boys or a Frank Sinatra and make it cool again?
Well, in the case of the Beach Boys, you probably may or may know there was a Grammys tribute television show on CBS. There was a Frank Marshall produced, directed Beach Boys special, which did big numbers. The Beach Boys are up over double since we got involved with them.
In terms of streaming, in terms of revenue, everything?
Yeah, revenue, yeah.
Yeah. You have built a bunch of different businesses under the kind of...
Yeah, no attention span.
Umbrella. I think one that doesn't get a lot of attention, that is worth more than $3 billion, is GMR, your performing rights organization.
Yes.
How do you build a $3 billion music business in like 8 years that very few people seem to know about?
Well, it's not a very sexy business. It was in the performing rights area. The company, we recognized that there was a hole in the market. You had ASCAP and BMI, two regulated consent decree-laden companies that signed everybody, but there was nobody serving the premium customer. And we believed, as in everywhere else, you wouldn't have the same ticket price for every act. Why should you be able to license an Eagles song for the same amount of money as some new song that just came on the charts? So it's, I believe GMR is probably about 220 writers versus 1 million ASCAP or BMI writers. So it's set to serve a specific market. The company actually started because I would call up ASCAP, my friend at ASCAP, Randy Grimmett, who founded GMR with us, and say, Eagles, will they make more money at ASCAP or BMI? And he would tell me, because you don't get any royalty statements, you can't audit, there's no transparency. So it was kind of a no-brainer. And then the straw that broke the camel's back is there was a satanic minister playing Eagles Hotel California backwards on YouTube, on his YouTube thing. And then you issue a takedown, and then it pops back up. And then YouTube says, well, you got to have your lawyer come to us. And then the lawyer sends, and then he says, oh, they have a license. They had gotten a license. PRS in London had gotten a license from the U.S. and issued a blanket license. So if you wanted to quote a lyric from Hotel California in your college yearbook, you needed permission, but you can run to London because BMI gave them a right, and you can be a satanic minister, pay 12 cents, and play the Eagles song backwards on YouTube, who, of course, are complicit in every major crime against artists.
You're one of the few people in the music. I feel like over the last decade, the music business went from hating YouTube to liking YouTube. You're one of the few people who still sees it as a big problem.
What rock have you been living on?
You talk to the labels, and they are very excited about how much money they seem to be getting from YouTube now.
No, listen, when GMR had its last negotiation with YouTube, the labels were all calling me saying, let them take everything down, right? We're standing behind you. Believe me, the YouTube problem is nobody stands up to them. The bullying continues. I mean, I had a conversation with someone in the know recently after I shot off my mouth at another one of these gatherings recently. And he called me up, and someone in the know said, I'm going to give you a statistic, which I wasn't even going to bring up here today, but you started it. Basically, in fact, Colbert has more people watching him than David Letterman at his peak. And the economics to CBS are 10% of what the Letterman economics used to be. And why is that? That's because YouTube doesn't pay. On music royalties, they pay on their same service as a Spotify or an Apple or an Amazon. Their royalty is 1/5 of the highest paying of the other ones. And they just get away with it because they're YouTube. I mean, it's the classic definition of a monopoly. And, maybe something happens, maybe it doesn't. But, everybody, not just the music business, but, I've watched my friends in the movie business and the TV business have, let them get away with it too. I hear about, I took that show down and our ratings went up 5%, but the artist was mad, so we had to put it back up. They've been very clever. They've built a big monopoly, but, for the $50 billion I think they made last year, they could just pay a little more. And they will bully a network, an artist, a performing rights society, a publisher, a label. It's across the board.
Isn't the issue with that, as with the fight that Universal had with TikTok, as with any fight that someone has with Spotify, that ultimately, if an artist has a new album that they want to promote, they want it to be available on the service?
Yeah, I mean, look, acts. I think across all the areas, entertainers in general are very insular. They're creative people. They don't stand up for themselves. They don't band together and use any sort of collective.
They use you.
Huh?
They use you.
Yeah, but what are there? Thousands of managers? We're like spitting in the ocean to YouTube.
2 quick questions, and then we got to go.
Okay.
You were someone who thought that a new administration in D.C. would be better for deals. You're not necessarily, I'm not going to talk about your politics here, but you were definitely fed up with Lena Khan and that part of the administration. Has the business environment under Trump been better or worse than you thought it was going to be?
I think in certainly in music, same. Same
as you thought, not same as it was.
No, it's kind of same as it was under Biden.
Got it. So not what you want it to be.
Oh, we haven't had a deal there, so I don't know yet.
And then I'm going to crib one from the conversation with Matt. We're going to play one buy, sell, hold. The 3 biggest companies in music. You can Live Nation, Spotify, UMG.
What about them?
You're going to buy one, sell one, and hold.
Oh, buy one, Live Nation, Spotify, UMG. Buy Spotify, sell the other, sell UMG, hold on Live Nation.
Okay.
Because of the uncertainty of everything.